I did further maths, I did food management, I did French. You can add that to your things that you really want to do to build up your resume. Now, I went straight into commerce too, based upon my requirements. I did private WASC, SS2. I got my requirements, but I still went into SS3, and then after which I went straight to Premier 2. That was 2008, and then I had the opportunity to. I had a scholarship, so I passed my exams. I was invited for an interview, and by God's grace, this is for people who they want to travel out. Okay, do not limit yourself. Do not. Okay, people who want to travel out and also specialize or study medicine. Okay, for free. The government had to pay. Of course, it comes with its own challenges, but it was beautiful. Concerning the universities that you would have to enter, in Sierra Leone at the moment, you have commerce, okay? And now at Bo, there's Jala. Jala has now Premier 1 and Premier 2. And as time goes on, they're going to have first year, second year, and so forth. So those are the two universities at the moment that you can go to study medicine. Thank you.
I represent lecturers. But as I told you initially, you approach that field, which I said is a really vaguely named field. It means teacher and researcher, etc. You approach that from a vast range of possible disciplines. You could be a lecturer in the arts and humanities, so in history, English, the languages, in sociology, the social sciences, in the physical sciences, chemistry, etc., etc., in engineering, in law. What distinguishes a person to be accepted to teach at that level, at the level of the university? Well, from the point of view of Sierra Leone, is you usually must have at least a master's degree to be designated lecturer. So, in other words, as long as you come from the field that you are coming in from and you desire to be a lecturer, you must aspire to that point. Although, just short of the lecturer's level, there are also levels that include teaching assistants, which are like lecturers, but they are more like growing into the senior capacity. So the question is, what must you do to get to the point where you become that kind of a professional? So it typically means that you must follow the paths that each person here is indicating, because you could be a lecturer as a lawyer, could be a lecturer as a doctor, as a finance professional, as an architect, as an engineer, as a geologist. So please listen to those specifically, but then understand that it is not just sufficient to just get your bachelor's degree. It's required of you to excel to the point where you get a master's degree, and then typically a PhD. In some countries, you do not become a lecturer by having just a master's degree. And in fact, in certain places are so high that just having a PhD does not qualify you to just become a lecturer. So typically what you are called in the US is assistant professor, which is like assistant lecturer. And professor, which is the name can be right across the world, it is that you can be a professor. The professor in America is not necessarily a professor, but then the cadre, which is what they call it, you get to a level where you become tenure. Then you are called a professor that ranks as professor all around the world. So typically what I'm trying to say is that if you want to be a lecturer, you must aspire to grow in academia and get various degrees. But for me, it's not a degree only that qualifies you. What I've sought to teach my students in engineering is that there's a lot more to your career than just the technical dimension. Do not enter the profession if you do not intend to distinguish yourself. If all you want to do is chop, yeah, you can find anything. You can actually chop without ever getting in there. But because the role of the lecturer is to groom people who go back to impact the world, you must understand your role to be one of formation of people. You are going to be helping to build the character and build basically the character of people. And that's a totally, you don't even need to go to college, to learn that. You must have built your character from the beginning, which is why I think that this forum is a great place. Because you, as young people, are already thinking, how can I make a difference in such a corrupt world? And if I am going to be given responsibility to teach people, how can I help them to be better? So I think you're already beginning to build the foundation for that, but please consider the other dimensions of excellence in academia. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. Architecture. I'm sure not many of us have heard the architecture like we have law and medicine and engineering and others. But architecture is basically what we see that shapes the spaces in which everybody who is speaking here works in. Okay, so we basically design and create spaces and structures that enhance the works that other people do. Architecture is both an art and a science, because you would find some very rigid systems that need function because of the use of those spaces. And you also find spaces where you see flair, where people want to express themselves. It's not so much for function, it's so much for aesthetics, how things look, how nice it is. That is the contribution we bring into architecture. To do architecture, like maybe I should go back a bit for what I did. I was very analytical. I like thinking creatively. I want to see something that has not been there. So it's more like trying to create something that is not there. But in this sense, for what people would need so they can do what they do best. Okay, so having that in mind, I don't like reading. Sorry, I don't like reading. I don't like a lot of English. I like maths. So when you say maths, yes, and architecture, you need maths because there's a lot of calculations you have. Not very lot, but there are some general calculations you have to do. You also need science. You need chemistry. You need physics. A lot more. All of these structures we are talking about have basis on physics. The physics you are learning, how to handle various things on the rigid level. You'll also need physics, chemistry, maths. If you have a biology background, it won't help too much. But in the other areas of the arts, you also can come in if you are doing fine arts. Okay, fine arts. You need fine art. If you are doing government, you need government. If you are doing history, you need that as well. Then geography as well. We do a lot of landscaping stuff, so you need geography as well. And I think basically coming down to Sierra Leone, I've mentioned all these ranges because you could decide to do it anywhere else. But if you want to do it in Sierra Leone, the very basic things that we have shared, physics, okay, the sciences first, the arts, and then some of the technicals. I don't know too much of the technical field here, but you can also come from the technical field. You know, drawing is technical. There's a technical part of drawing. So you can also come from the technical background and still have opportunity to do architecture. Okay, and the basic entry requirements are the minimums of having C4 and C5. Okay, anything beyond that, your chances are slim. Now there's so many of us, so many applications are made. The lesser your grade, the better. Okay, C2, C3, you are safe to go. But if you target at what the cutoff points are, you may not even if you have the cutoff marks. Okay, so it's very important that we think about how to create spaces. And I want to challenge us, in as much as we may not have a lot of architects. When I came to Sierra Leone, I noticed that how many architects are in Sierra Leone? Registered architects. There's 20 something.
Yeah, less than 30.
Less than 30. But in Ghana, we are over 1,000. And when you go to other developed countries, there are many more. Okay? And relatively, when you look at those countries, you see the growth and development of those countries. Architecture expresses what a nation looks like. Okay? When you go on Facebook or Google, just Google developed countries, you see a lot of, they'll show you buildings. Okay? And when you also Google undeveloped buildings, you see there are no buildings. You know, so it's important for us to understand that there is a need. And as we grow in Sierra Leone, we need people like architects in our midst. Thank you.
From what architect Richard just said, FDC started architecture 5 years ago, and also now the Conquin also does interior architecture. So those are the two colleges or universities that you can apply to. Okay, now we are continuing. So we want you guys to just tell us like the various areas of specialization. So what are the various areas that we can specialize in if someone to be a banker or a doctor? Because a doctor can be just a general term. So which type of doctor are you and stuff like that?
First of all, after you don't go to law school, you not be. It is when you've completed or successfully completed exams that you are called to the bar. So a lot of people that are in university, they call themselves lawyers. No, they are not lawyers. Except you go to the bar. It is from the bar that they call you to. It is from the law school that they call you to the bar. If you don't go to law school, you are not. So once you've been called to the bar, then you are not even a barrister and solicitor as that. You are not at that time. You only become